We are live. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Salem-Tekenbosch. I am a professor in the Department of Informatics here at UCI. I'm also the chair of the steering committee for an undergraduate program called Game Design and Interactive Media, which is a BS degree. And it was formerly called Computer Game Science. So we've had a games program for a long time. And this year we spent a couple years revising the curriculum, bringing it up to date. And so part of that revision came a new name, which I'll talk a little bit about today. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of poll here. So in chat, if you want to answer yes to this question, just put a plus. This is a way for me later to kind of keep track of things. So a lot of people ask, well, how do I know if this program is for me? So these are some questions that we tend to ask students just to kind of gauge their relative interest. So the first question is, are you passionate about games, right? And do you have an interest in becoming a game designer or developer? So if you say, yes, that's me, put a plus in chat. A second question is, you want to learn how to use games and other playable media for social good. So one thing I'll talk about today in the context of the program is that we're really interested in in graduating students that are really interested in sort of designing games that have an impact in the world. So potentially moving beyond the kind of typical AAA title towards games and other kinds of playable media that do work in other ways in the world. So if that's you, you can add a plus. Third question is, do you have creative ideas for new kinds of games and interactive experiences? So the game design and interactive media degree is partly about designing games. We use games and the making of games broadly to talk about the design of playful interactive systems. And so the kinds of things that you might be making in the program may not look typically like a game. So it may be a VR or an AR experience that is game-like, that is very playful, but may not fall into a kind of traditional definition of game. And so we're really interested in the program and kind of pushing the field forward in terms of kind of new genres of games, new genres of interactive experiences that use play as the basis of their kind of interactivity. So if you answer yes to that question, you can add a plus. The next question is, can you foresee yourself working as part of a team to develop a major title? So game development typically across industry happens in teams. It's a very complex process that brings together artists and writers and audio designers and programmers and game developers and systems designers. And so learning how to work in a team is a key part of this curriculum. And if you don't like to work in teams, this program is probably not for you. We really are interested in helping students develop skills around collaboration, something we call collaboration within cross-functional teams. So collaborating with people who may have an expertise that's different than you, but you're working towards a common goal around a kind of common shared product or set of products. Okay, so if you're like, yeah, I like working as part of a team, put plus in the chat. And then the last question we ask is, do you have visual or storytelling skills that you want to use to craft game worlds? So one of the changes that we made in the curriculum from the older computer game science degree to this program is that we've added in courses that are focused on visual design and focused on storytelling. And part of that is that we found that even if you're not interested in doing interface design or UX design or game art, you have to know something about visual design in order to communicate with those team members. And you have to know something about storytelling to be able to participate in kinds of game design that deal with the kind of invention and creation of story worlds. We also found that there were a lot of students really interested in visual design and really interested in storytelling, that in the old curriculum, there really wasn't a place for them. So we've remedied that, as I said, in this revised curriculum to offer courses that support students that are interested in those particular kinds of skills. Okay, so again, if you put a plus, be great to say, yeah, this is probably a place for you. Okay, so the simplest question is, so what is GDIM? So as I said, this is a BS degree, a Bachelor's of Science. It's focused on design and development of games and other forms of playable media. The program is built on what we call 4 content pillars. So in the first 2 years of the program, you're going to be taking combinations of classes in each of these areas. Okay, one is game programming and data science. Okay, so you'll be taking a series of courses where you learn how to program games. You will also take some courses within that pillar in something called data science, which I think was just talked about if any of you were sitting in on that presentation. So learning how to understand player data is a really critical part of being a developer. And you use data to improve your game. And so we've added into this program some courses in data science to help students develop a literacy in that area. So that's pillar one. The second pillar is in game design and development. So again, in the first 2 years, you'll be taking foundational courses in game design. So how to design games, what are the fundamental ideas in game design, as well as courses in game development. So this talks about how is it that games get developed. So understanding things about the kind of game development pipeline, understanding things about different roles that may exist within a company, within a development team. So that's pillar two. Pillar three, and so in the old program, computer game science, these two pillars were already there. So this is a foundation that in this revision we're already building on. These are the newest piece to the curriculum is this pillar called world building. So this, as I mentioned before, this is a series of courses focused on interactive storytelling, on visual design, and on role play and improvisation. So this kind of strand of courses really helps support students in understanding how do I kind of craft these worlds, right? In the building of games. How do I think about the story? How do I think about the environment? How do I think about the interface design? How do I think about the idea of kind of playful interaction or character design in my game? So world building is our third pillar. And then the fourth pillar, this also existed in the old degree, but we've really sort of beefed it up in this degree. So this is a pillar we call Games and Society. So these are a series of courses that look at how games kind of lurk within culture and society. So asking questions about representation in games, who plays games, who doesn't play games, how might we think about games in a kind of critical way. So those are the four pillars that make up the program. In the first 2 years, as I said, these pillars are really present. You'll notice like, oh, I'm taking 2 courses or 3 courses in game programming. I'm taking 2 or 3 courses in game design, 2 or 3 courses in world building, and same in game society. By the time you move into the upper division courses, these things start to merge together within courses where you're being asked to draw on your programming skills as you're designing and developing a game, right? Drawing on those writing skills and those kind of critical thinking skills. So what makes the GDIM program unique? And so we point to three things that we think the context of UCI makes it a pretty interesting program. So one is that this program sits within the Department of Informatics, which is, I think if you look at programs across the country, it's a fairly unique setting because it brings informatics is about the social and the technical, the human and the kind of technical structure of things. So what it allows us to do is offer a program that not only looks at the kind of underlying technology, but also looks at the human factors, issues of kind of psychology, of human computer interaction, of usability, really understanding how the player experience looks in addition to helping support kind of technical skills. So we think that institutional context is pretty interesting because it brings together expertise in HCI, design, and also software engineering. We also have a pretty incredible faculty. So again, if you look across the country, we probably have the most well-regarded games faculty in the country. The most number of folks that have a really strong background in game design and development, also in kind of thinking critically about games. And also the proximity to industry here is pretty amazing. We're located in Silicon Beach. And there's a huge number of game studios in and around the Southern California and LA area. And within our program, we often hire industry experts to come in and teach our classes. So we have about 30% of our courses are taught by experts that we bring in from Blizzard or from Riot or from Amazon Game Studio, Age of Learning. And we think this is really critical to make sure that the information that you're getting is really up to date. So this is, I think, quite a unique factor of the program. So this is a question we'll probably get a lot. If you're a new student, it may not mean much to you, but you've probably heard about, again, the kind of older computer game science program. So people want to know, well, what's the difference? Okay, so the changes we made really fall into 5 areas. So the first one is that in the revised program, the game design and interactive media, you're going to be building games earlier, more games earlier. So within the program now, you'll be building games in your freshman year. In the old computer game science degree, it wasn't really into your junior year where you had a chance to really make games. The second critical piece of GDIM that makes it different from the old computer game science program is that within GDIM, you're going to be learning program in the context of game development rather than within a kind of general computer science context. So we have a 3-course sequence in game programming that uses a game programming language and gives you a chance to kind of think about programming, again, in the context of games rather than in a general CS course. The third thing is that you'll develop skills for writing for interactive environments, dealing with improvisation and visual design, which I talked about. So those were elements not present in the old degree. We've moved doing work in teams much earlier in the program. So in the old program, you often didn't work in a team maybe until late in your junior year or your senior year. In the new program, you're actually start working in teams in your freshman year because we think that's a really important skill to develop. And the last thing we've done is we've added a lot of electives to the program so that your upper division, that the last 2 years of the program, you have a lot of opportunity to customize the program, to take a series of courses in the areas that you're really interested in. I mean, the older program, you had to kind of commit to a pathway and there wasn't a lot of opportunity kind of for electives. So we've tried to add flexibility and add customization through the addition of electives. Okay, so now I want to walk us through some what we call student personas. So these are kind of fictional identities for students that are based on our understanding in the program of the kinds of students that we have, the kinds of interests that they've had, and their kind of imagined future of where they want to go and why they're in the program. So I'm just going to quickly walk through 4 of these. So the first one is Priscilla. So Priscilla is really interested in game design and development. She's loved games that she can remember. And she considers herself a kind of connoisseur of games. So she like owns a ton of games. And she came to UCI because she wants to become broadly educated, right? So she realizes that sort of anybody can learn to use Unity, but she really wants to learn the craft of design, right? In a way that's connected to her favorite designers. And she's able to kind of dig more deeply into kind of the history of design, the history of games. Now, she uses her open electives in courses in the social sciences to expand her understanding of things like player behavior. And she takes courses in project management and HCI within the Department of Informatics. So she's hoping to find people who want to make cool games, as part of the program. And she imagines that someday she'll probably end up working in a game studio, but working in a digital media field broadly is also really of interest to her, right? So she's passionate about games. She wants to learn about design, but she's interested in designing games and also things that might move beyond games. So that's Priscilla. Okay, so let's take a look at Michael. So Michael's really a programming guy. He decides to focus his elective coursework really around game programming, and he also does a double major in computer science. Okay, he's loved games like StarCraft and Call of Duty since he can remember. And he's one of those guys that started programming really early. He has a strong interest and kind of skill set in math and science, and he chose UCI because of this ability to double major in GDIM and CS. It will take him a fifth year, which he's fine with. He's not sure if he's going to end up in games forever, but his dream is to work at Blizzard. He really wants to become a game engineer at Blizzard. So that's Michael. Okay, let's take a look at Joe. So Joe decides to focus their elective work on games and society. So really looking at this idea of kind of thinking about games critically. They're an avid gamer and social activist. They volunteered for a community organization that has worked with the homeless for many years, and really interested in connecting their interest in social activism with their game design coursework. Okay, they use their open elective to take courses in film and media studies and anthropology and education. They get introduced to the Games for Change Festival, which is a conference that looks at games for impact, and they earn a travel scholarship to attend there. And they're excited about working for companies one day to see if this interest in games for impact can help kind of change the field. So that's Joe. Okay, this is Mizuko. So Mizuko, she loves games, but she's actually really interested in drawing character stories. And so she's interested in the kind of interactive media focus of the game design and interactive media program. She loves games like Neko Atasume on her phone. She loves WoW, and she has been playing the game Rime on Steam for a long time. She'd like to work for a big company and to make kind of interesting play experiences, which may not be games at all, right? She loves theater and role playing and LARPing. She does web design in the side, and she plans to use her open electives to take courses in things like costume design and digital media design from the School of Art, and other kinds of art classes at UCI. She could imagine herself someday getting out of games and doing fine arts or something similar. So she sees this program as a kind of jumping off point to support her creativity. And then the last person we have is Luis. So Luis is really interested in project management. So he's played games his whole life. He was a member of his high school esports club. And there, he was a competitive player, but he also found himself doing the scheduling and managing the club's budget. He's an avid D&D player, and he loves working in teams to create analog games. He chose UCI because he saw that he could specialize in project management, which he thinks he would excel at, given his organizational skills and interest in teamwork. He's not sure if he wants to work only in the game industry, but he sees it as a great starting point for an eventual career in project management for a large media company. Okay, so as we look at these personas, what I hope that you'll see is that the same foundational curriculum in those first 2 years provides students an opportunity to customize a kind of pathway around their interests, whether it's in project management or game design or game programming, or games in society. Okay, another question that I'm sure your parents will be asking is what kind of careers are graduates of GDIM prepared for? So the old computer game design program, there was a lot of interest in kind of graduate students into AAA studios. So these are big studios like Riot and Blizzard. This program, we think, also prepares students to work in those large studios, but also in medium to small companies, in tech or ed tech companies that are developing, again, what we call kind of playable media, including things like learning games, games for health, interactive museum experiences, apps. And again, students will be prepared to take on different kinds of roles depending on the kinds of electives that they take in those upper years. Game designer, systems designer, level designer, project manager, producer, interactive media designer, a QA engineer, game engineer, or programmer, right? And a lot of studios, some of these roles mix together depending on the size, the particular size of the studio. So there's a range of roles that this degree prepares students for. Okay, I want to quickly go through the requirements. This is all on the website, which you could take a look at later, but I thought maybe I could talk through it a little bit. So the overall degree has 176 total credits. So this is, in line with a lot of other degrees. Okay, so I want to talk about the lower division courses. So again, these are courses that you take in your first 2 years. And I've color coded these so you can kind of see these pillars that I've talked about between the kind of game design group, the data science or game programming group, the games in society. So you'll in those first 2 years, you'll take courses in game design fundamentals. So here, this is a course where you learn to design analog games. It's your first introduction to game design. I teach this class. There's about 170 students, and we make over 500 games, right, in the course of 8 weeks as a group. You'll then take an intermediate game design course and an intro to game development course. So this is a kind of, in this first year, the first year and a half, your introduction to game design. You'll also take this is the sequence in programming that I talked about: introduction to programming for games, intermediate programming for games, and a course called coding and game engines, as well as this course in introduction to data science. And then the third cluster of classes around games and society. We'll have special topics in games and society, or you can take this class in role playing and improvisational play. You're required to take a course called Visual Design Fundamentals, as well as a course called Storytelling for Interactive Media. So what I hope you see here is in those first 2 years, of kind of foundational years of the program, you're being introduced again to these 4 pillars: world building, game programming, game design and development, and games and society. The upper division courses, you'll have a chance to choose from courses in advanced game design. So these are topics that might change from year to year. You'll take a course in data analytics for games in interactive media. So again, this falls into that data science bucket. You'll take a course called Multiplayer Game Project, where you'll work in teams to develop a multiplayer game. We then have a 2-quarter capstone project where you'll work in teams to develop a game from scratch. And then you have a chance to choose at least one of the following: a professional studio or practicum course where you get a chance to build out your portfolio, a course in project management, or a course in games and entrepreneurship, because we have students that are interested in starting their own indie studio upon graduation. So learning something about how to be an entrepreneur. In addition to those required courses, you then need to take 6 additional courses drawn from this list. And so you'll see some crossover with other courses that I just talked about. But additional courses from computer science, you can take a course in software design. You can take a course in HCI, human computer interaction. You can take a course in user interaction software, children's media and learning, statistics, probability and statistics. So again, here you have a chance through these electives to draw from this list, again, to start to specialize in areas of interest. And then on top of that, you have an additional 9 elective courses that you can take from across the university. So as I mentioned in some of the personas, students can take courses in film and media studies, over in the art school, in anthropology and social sciences and engineering. So we're hoping that these elective courses give you a chance, again, to take the kinds of classes that you think are going to really supplement your study and also really support things that you're interested in. Okay, so very quickly, this is a sample program of study. This is sort of the set of courses we recommend you take in these sequences. So this is your freshman year. In the fall semester, you would take a course in Games and Society, Intro to Programming for Games, Visual Design Fundamentals, and then one of your first required writing courses. Okay, in the winter quarter, you take this role-playing and improvisational play course, Game Design Fundamental course, and Intro to Data Science. And then in the spring, you take Intro to Game Development, you take your second game programming course, and here you have a chance for an open elective, and you take your second required writing course. So that's your freshman year. So already programming, already making games. And your sophomore year, here you're introduced to storytelling for interactive media. You're taking your coding and game engines. This is the 3rd in the game programming sequence. Again, you have a chance to take an elective and then choose from one of your general education requirements: winter quarter, intermediate game design, open elective, and again, an elective from the GE requirements. And in the spring, special topics in Games and Society. And here you have basically 3 electives. You have a chance to choose. So you'll even see that by the sophomore year, there's a lot of room in the schedule for you to be making decisions about the courses you're taking based on your interests. In year 3, this is again where you begin to see those four pillars coming together: the data analytics for games and interactive media in the junior year. Again, a lot of electives there. Special topics course in the winter plus electives, spring multiplayer game project, game entrepreneurship plus electives. And then your senior year, you're really focused on your capstone project and filling out your program of study with electives, again, that are of interest to you. Okay, so my sort of last slide really has to do with this idea that the goal of our program is to prepare students both for life and for career. So we talk about really wanting to graduate conscientious, well-informed, skilled design collaborators, right, who understand the centrality of games and interactive media to the world today. Okay, so we're not just interested in graduating people who know how to make games, but we're really interested in graduating students that understand the kind of role that games can play in the world and can help envision and expand that role. They've gained valuable technical skills as well as skills in communication, production, leadership, and design. And they know how to be productive members of dynamic teams, companies, and communities, right? So this includes designing games and other forms of interactive media, managing projects, working on diverse teams. They've understand something about the business of design and thinking critically about the connections between games and society. The last question is, how do I prepare for the major? So we actually welcome students of a whole variety of backgrounds, right? So some students might come in with a background in design, others with a background in programming or creative writing. It doesn't really matter. What you really need to come in with is a love for games, a curiosity about how they're designed and developed. Okay, if you can come in with that, you're ready to go. You do need to have an interest in solving problems and working with others. So as I said, if you're not interested in collaborating, probably this is not the program for you. If you are interested in, again, in creating, designing, and learning about the development process of games and interactive media, this is probably the place for you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm happy I was seeing some questions coming in. So let's see if we can answer some questions here. Okay. Neha, do you want to, let's see, should I just start from the top?
Yeah, go ahead and start from the top.
Okay, let's make sure I'm at the top. Okay, is computer science a part of the game design major, or is your future employment strictly limited to game design when you get a BS degree in game design? So the game design and interactive media has computer science as part of it. So you are taking a series of courses, which I hope you've seen in game programming. So that comes from computer science. Our goal is that you're prepared not only to make games, but again, to make and design systems that are interactive and have kind of play at their heart. Okay, so we use a quite expansive definition of games. So how hard and competitive is it to get a job with this major versus computer science? What about salary? Compared to being a computer science major? Well, so what I would say is, I don't really have a good answer to that question. I think it's competitive anywhere, and both degrees is competitive to get a job. It's a competitive job market out there. I think that in the GDIM degree, there's probably a larger range of places that you might go in terms of roles that you might take on. And within computer science, again, you're probably going to stay primarily within kind of technical roles within a company. And salary, I think that's something you can look up. You can look up online. That's pretty transparent information. Is it possible to double major in game design and computer science? Yes. With this major, can you later go into a master's in computer science? Are all the classes enough to apply to a master's in computer science? Yes. It depends. I mean, it depends on the school, but you would be prepared to go into a master's of computer science. I would say at certain universities. Again, every university has their own set of requirements. For GDIM students, is there opportunity to study abroad while going through this program? Now, that is a good question. I do not know the answer to. Neha, do you know the answer?
I do. So typically when you go to a university abroad, you will let us know, you will get the syllabi for the courses you want to take, and then we will review them for you to see how applicable they are to your major. So there isn't right now a set of courses that we've already articulated to universities abroad. But we definitely do have a review process in place so that you can at least get them reviewed before you take them or while you're taking them.
Good. What companies are we able to internship with game design during our time in UCI? So there's no limit to this. As I said, we're in Silicon Beach. We have students that have interned at all kinds of companies here. I think the interesting thing that's happened with COVID is the idea of a virtual internship sort of didn't exist before. And I think more and more companies now are maybe open to the idea. So you would have a chance potentially to apply for internships in other places. Some of our students intern during the year. Definitely the summer is a time when lots of students take internships. So there's a lot of different places to try to intern. How full will my schedule be if I want to double major in game design and comp sci? Well, so the double major, we think we're going to require an additional year of study. So that's just something to keep in mind. You'll be limited to the kind of recommended number of credits that you should take a quarter, probably not to exceed that or you'll kill yourself. So you can build in time taking courses in the summer and in that extra year. How should someone who's on the fence about trying GDIM instead of just CS weigh the options, including double majoring? How do the two programs differ in, say, the ratio and depth of CS content? Right, so the depth of content, it's just different kinds of content. So as I said, if you take a degree in CS, you'll go through the intro programming sequence there, which really looks at, uses, I think C++ and I can't remember the other languages they study there. The GDIM sequence, we're going to be studying C#, and you're going to be focused on the study of games. So you'll be going equally deep, but with different programming languages and with kind of a different focus. You can always change majors, right? This is just for anybody. Nobody really knows what's going to be the right program for them coming in. What I would say is kind of trust your instinct about the thing that you're most passionate about. Within the GDIM program, there's lots, as I said, there's a lot of electives. Using the electives is potentially a way to kind of deepen your interest around the CS piece. But what I would say is try to enter into the program that you feel kind of most passionate about. And you can always change later. Changing does not come without challenges, right? Sometimes you have to take a little bit of extra coursework, but you're not locked into something forever. If you start one place and decide to change later, that's okay. I'm a current student. I'm looking to transfer. Any advice would be helpful. I graduated in June from high school and I wasn't aware this major existed. Oh, you want to transfer universities? Yeah. All right, Neha.
So for any student who wants to transfer to a transfer admission, so you're at Dominguez Hills right now, do 1 year of computing. Programming is fine. For example, if you do like, let's say, introduction to C++ and then advanced C++ in the second semester. I think for the GDIM major, we have computer science, computing programming as a requirement. And then we may have listed one math course as a requirement as well. It's very similar to informatics and what we have in terms of admission. If you have any questions about it, you can go ahead and just email us at council@uci.edu and we'll answer them specifically for you. But if you've done your first year in a computing curriculum at Dominguez Hills, that's definitely going to be, I think, applicable to the admissions criteria.
Great. Okay, so I'm just looking at time, Neha. It's 4 o'clock. Do we need to wrap up?
We were given permission to go a little over time.
Okay, great. Would you suggest possibly double majoring in software development for someone who wants to focus on the programming aspects? So I think always my answer, Neha, I can throw this back to you too. I think the double major question, I think you need to get into the program. And see how it goes, and then you'll have access to faculty. And I would go talk to the software engineering faculty once you're on campus and kind of get their input around that particular thing. I think coming in knowing you're going to double major is it's a fairly heavy burden. I would say get started and kind of see how it goes. Neha, what's your?
These students come in, thinking they want to do double major, and then they get immersed in their program, and they realize, oh, I can have a much more interdisciplinary focus in my course. If I choose my coursework, accordingly. That's so, right. So they come in with that idea, but then they wind up not double majoring. So yeah. It changes.
Yeah, and also the GDM again has a lot of electives. If you add them all up, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's like 12 electives. And instead of thinking, oh, double major, it could just be that you use those electives to focus around software engineering. That's like another way to go. If I wanted to pursue game design, but focus more on the programming aspect, would I have to double major? Well, not necessarily, right? It just depends. You can use a lot of your electives to take additional CS courses. Are game design and computer science impacted majors? I don't know what that means.
There are some majors across the UC system that are basically capped at a certain number, and then they get a very large number of applications. For us in game design and computer science, it's not been defined as an impacted major. It is, yes, admissions into the School of ICS is competitive. But it is not where we have not capped these two majors at, let's say, 100 students only.
Got it. Okay, so the answer is no. If someone were to change their major to GDIM mid-year, what experiences would they be missing out on? So again, it depends on what you're changing from what major to GDIM. In the first quarter of GDIM, you're taking a games and society class, you're taking a game programming class. Those are the two pieces there. So these are courses that are offered multiple times in the year, and you could sort of make those up, but those are the courses. Are there any gaming clubs or organizations I can get involved with on campus? There are so many gaming clubs and organizations on campus. So you've got to go to the club list at UCI. The Video Game Development Club is one of the most popular, VGDC. There's a design club at UCI, which is another great club. There's like a Magic the Gathering club. There's a Smash club. There's Street Fighter club. There's all kinds of clubs on campus interested in games. So I think if you go to the club, just search UCI clubs, find the club page, you'll see enormous number of gaming clubs. If I'm more interested in being a game programmer, not necessarily just a designer, would I have to double major? All these questions. Yes, as well. If I do have to double major, how would I show that on my application? I'll let Neha take the second piece. I think if you are really interested in being a game programmer, game engineer, like you see that as your future, you know that's your future, yes, you should double major. I don't know how you indicate that on your application.
You don't. There's no way to indicate a double major in the application simply because we don't admit into two tandem majors. You will choose your first choice and your second choice, and then if you're admitted, you'll be admitted into one of those two options. And then usually students figure out they want a double major. I tend to see it usually in year 2. After they've experienced a full first year in their major, and then they realize, I think I do want to have a double major. I want to have a much more interdisciplinary focus, and so this is the right fit for me.
Got it.
And you'll just do the change of major process for that.
Okay. If I've already created a few games in my free time with Unity, could it help could a portfolio help my chances in admission? Neha.
No, we don't look at portfolios during the undergraduate admissions process. However, I would suggest that you mention in terms of your extracurricular activities, I do think it is good for you to mention that this is what you do with your time outside of the classroom. Again, we always do a holistic review. It's not just your grades. We want to also see what you're doing outside of the classroom and what makes you a great candidate for admission. So this is a good thing to put down there to say, I'm applying to GDIM because this is what I do outside of my time. I spend, let's say 30, 40 hours a week designing games, and I've already developed, let's say 2 or 3 games.
Great, that is good advice. And it's good if you're already making games. That's great. You mentioned you can always change majors. If I didn't get into my first choice CS, but got my second choice, what are my odds of changing majors? So my guess is you're trying to say, can I use GDIM to get into CS? Okay, Neha.
Okay, so I don't recommend using one major to get into another major and hopscotching that way because for example, classes can be restricted. So so certain courses are restricted for CS majors only or vice versa. You use another major to get into GDIM. We'll block courses to GDIM majors first before we open it up to the entire campus. So you always want to make the most efficient progress for major or to degree. If you are going to choose 1 and 2 choices, first and second choices, make sure there are 2 choices that you really do enjoy and that you really would be enjoying pursuing them. Let's say you get your first choice is CS, you don't get into it. Your second choice was GDIM and you do get into it. Then I would suggest matriculating into GDIM, exploring that major, and then finding out what is it about these 2 that really appeal to you and how can you combine that in your educational experience. But let's say you get into computer science and you realize this is not the major for me and I want to switch to GDIM or vice versa. We always have a change of major policy for all of our majors, and you would just work on meeting the change of major requirements to do that.
Okay, last question. Which choice for major do I fill out when applying to UCI for this major? GDIM, Game Design and Interactive Media.
Yeah, Game Design and Interactive Media. It is on your application. It will, if it's not listed by major list, if you go into the Donald Brennan School of Information Computer Sciences, it will show up underneath our school at UCI.
Great. No open questions. That's wonderful. We answered all the questions.
These are great questions. Thank you for asking them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're done. We obviously we hope to see your applications and look forward to seeing any of you that enter into the program next year.
Thank you all for attending. This recording will be sent to you. It will be sent to you via email. So look for admissions email tomorrow morning. They will send you a list of links to all of today's recordings, and we will be one of them. Have a good day.
Wonderful. Bye.
Bye.